Well, now that the NFL is officially over, the next football that matters comes in late August, courtesy of college football. Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports Weekly, part of heartlandcollegesports.com. We're your Big 12 digital media outlet. We appreciate you joining us and being a part of the show. So there's so much to get into on all fronts. And, where I want to begin is the fact that, first off, some people ask me about the Alliance of American Football. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not taking that seriously. I'm just not. You can. If you need your fix, if you are that big of a heroin addict that you got to go down the road of the Alliance of American Football, be my guest. I'm not doing it, at least not yet. You might get me to, but I'm not doing it. I am now counting down to spring football in the Big 12. That's what's got me going over the next few weeks, trying to dig out of this. It's been a pretty brutal winter. I'm not sure where you are. I'm in Kansas City. It's not been fun since the new year. Anyway, I was thinking about this with the NFL in the books, right? And it was a terrible Super Bowl. And when you think about it, when the Cheez-It Bowl is better than the Super Bowl, the NFL has a problem. But where the NFL does not have a problem is in some of its young quarterbacks. It could have been Mahomes versus Goff, a couple of 2-year guys, year 2 guys, year 3 guys getting their feet wet on the biggest stage in the NFL in the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, Chiefs couldn't get it done. But you think about guys like Baker Mayfield. You think about Mitch Trubisky, right? All of a sudden, these young names keep popping up. Sam Darnold. And where do none of these names come from? None of them come from the SEC, and none of them come from the Big Ten. Not a single one. Deshaun Watson, ACC, Texans, of course, Clemson guy. Where do any of them come from? They're all from the Big 12. They're all from the Pac-12. And a lot of them are from the ACC. That's it. That's the reality. We always hear about the big and mighty SEC and the Big Ten, and don't get me wrong, they're good conferences. But when you talk about the quarterback position, the most hyped position in football, they are coming from those 3 conferences and not the other ones. So I was thinking about the Big 12 and how this relates specifically to the conference that we cover. And when you think about guys like Baker Mayfield, who has helped turn around a dormant Cleveland Browns franchise, and then, of course, what Mahomes did with the Chiefs, getting them to, an overtime possession within the Super Bowl, this is great for the conference. It's sad to think about it, but Patrick Mahomes was the first true Big 12 quarterback to win an NFL playoff game. That was a red flag. And it was a bad deal for the Big 12 to have this going on for the past, 20 years, where they didn't have a single quarterback who had won an NFL playoff game. It's frankly pretty embarrassing that finally Monkey is now off the Big 12's back. And based on what we're seeing, Patrick Mahomes is going to win a lot of NFL playoff games. And Baker Mayfield, if he can continue to help turn around that franchise to where they're competing in the playoffs, I hate to bust out, the old playoffs. Talking about playoffs? Who was that? Oh, gosh. Why am I blanking on this guy? Playoffs. Why am I blanking on this guy? Somebody please help me here. Somebody give me a little bit of help. Jim Mora. The great Jim Mora with the playoffs drop. When you are talking about the Browns and playoffs in the same sentence and potentially Baker Mayfield in that conversation as well, my goodness, that's another huge boost for this conference. So when you talk about the most important position and you see the success of Mahomes, you see the success of Mayfield, who should have won Rookie of the Year. No offense, Saquon Barkley should have won Rookie of the Year. And you're seeing, NFL love for Big 12 coaches. My goodness, Cliff Kingsbury, a sub-500 record, gets hired by the Arizona Cardinals. I get it. He's riding them Mahomes train a little bit, but who cares? When the Big 12 can say, we fired a guy who couldn't, win more than 4 conference games, and he just got an NFL job. Is that worth something, or is that worth something? You had NFL teams considering Matt Rule. How close was Matt Rule to the New York Jets job? I think really close. We may never know, but I think it was really close to getting that job. Lincoln Riley, he may not have had any serious conversations, but if he wanted to, he could have, right? That was because Lincoln Riley said, listen, I'm not I'm not doing this. I want to stay here. I want to be here. And not only that, but he signed an extension to prove it. So that's out of the picture. But what other conference had this much attention from the NFL? Right? I mean, can you find me one? Bueller? Anybody? Matt Campbell got asked to be interviewed by the New York Jets. Don't forget that. Nobody got that kind of love or attention over the last couple of weeks from the NFL. 4 to 10 coaches had NFL interest. One of them got a head job. It was the guy who was fired by Texas Tech. You want to say, well, Nick Saban could get any job he wanted. All right, fine, he could. And he tried it once, and he bombed miserably. What does that mean? I mean, is anybody knocking down? Maybe Dabo Swinney could have an NFL job, and Kirby Smart and these guys. But it's because of the stylistic intrigue, first off in the Big 12, the offensive minds, the quarterback gurus that are Cliff Kingsbury, that are Lincoln Riley. And then Matt Rule has the ties to the NFL, which helps him out a lot. And he's taken a program in Baylor that was a disaster on and off the field the last couple of years, and he just won 7 games with them. That is worth something in year 2. So this conference is in very good shape when it comes to the hierarchy across the Power 5. And it's something that, every fan should be looking at, should be proud of, should be happy about. And it's something that this conference should be able to build on as we get to spring football and as we get into the summer and get ready for next season. It's got to be. It should absolutely be a bigger part of the conversation in this conference and how it handles itself moving forward. And, the other part is we are in the offseason and people are already talking about 2019 and what it means, and early odds are coming out. It's interesting to me that Texas has better odds to reach the national championship, win the national championship, than Oklahoma. It seems like every year, and I'm glad Texas is back. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, Texas, they're not back yet. No, I said they were back after they beat OU in October, and they are back. They got to the Big 12 title game. They beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. They're back, whether you like it or not. It's good for the conference. But are we overvaluing them in January, February? I think we are, and we tend to do this every year. Instead of just looking at Texas for what they are, we overvalue them to the point where we're sitting here and we're like, all right, when we think that they are a top 25 team, they're actually a 500 team. And now we're like, yeah, this is probably a top 10-ish team that can absolutely compete and win the Big 12. And now we're like, yeah, best odds to make the college football playoff in the Big 12, best odds to reach the national championship game and win it. Can we stop doing it? As much as I'm glad Texas is back, can we pull it back a little bit here and not get ourselves so wrapped up and so obsessed with this idea of overvaluing Texas? I got to see it again. They are a year ahead of schedule. They were a year ahead of schedule in 2018. No doubt about it. I thought they'd finish 3rd or 4th in the conference and they could win 8, 9 games. I thought that would have been a great year. But they get to the Big 12 title, and then they beat Georgia in that Sugar Bowl, and all of a sudden, I mean, if you wanted the hype train to take off, boy, it's taken off. Because when I look at the odds and I see the Texas Longhorns with the best chance in the Big 12 to win the whole darn thing and to win the national championship, I'm like, can we pump the brakes for a hot minute here, please? What I'm really intrigued by here in this offseason is to see, over the past 10 years, since Texas has been down by Texas standards, you've had OU, and then you've had, a team that kind of replaces Texas as that second best team in the conference. It's been TCU. It's been Oklahoma State. It's been Baylor for a period of time. Who am I forgetting? It hasn't really been Tech. You can argue it's been West Virginia here and there, although not really. So it's really been a combination of TCU and Oklahoma State for the most part, right? I mean, I think we can all agree on that. But now if Texas truly is back, which I think they are, and if they are now one of the top 2 teams with OU, I don't see OU ceding their position at the top of the Big 12 anytime soon. Who is going to be that number 3 team that can compete / knock off those top 2? That's what I am really interested in over these next, frankly, I guess that's more of a couple-year conversation. And if a team like Oklahoma State or TCU can't do it, and if they see themselves sliding back into the pack, does that affect their recruiting? I would hate to see it happen. Both those teams are coming off of 500 seasons, right? They're both coming off of mediocre years, which is unusual for both of those teams over the past, decade or so. They're both going to be looking for a nice bounce back, but it's not easy in this conference with this type of depth. When you got Matt Campbell up there in Ames and you got Matt Rule down there in Waco, guys we haven't even talked about, and Neil Brown, who people love at West Virginia, working your way up the ladder, even back up the ladder when you've been at the top of the ladder, is not easy to do in this conference. It's not, and it's going to be fascinating to see how now that 3 through 6 works out in the Big 12 Conference. Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports Weekly, part of HeartlandCollegeSports.com, your Big 12 digital media outlet. Well, coming up, let's talk some hoops. Matthew Postins, he's our basketball guru. He will join us next right here on Heartland College Sports Weekly.